the top of the backswing, how before the club was behind his hands and now it's a little across the line. So that's a pretty significant change.
The hands are, yes, the hands are to the right of the midline, but that club is well to the right of him. It's trailing him. He's circling the corner. He's not having that club in his hands cross him so much. The first thing we're going to do, Milo, if you want to pull up your coach now,
let me share my screen.
We figured we'd have some fun and take a look at the most recent major champion swing and some of the changes he's made, and that's Xander Schauffele.
Well, that's pretty money.
So this one, I believe, was at the PGA.
Yeah, this was at the PGA. That's during the practice round.
Yeah, I think, I want to say Luke Kerdanian took that one. Not perfect camera angle, but pretty close.
Let's watch that one more time at full speed. That was just a little cut he hit right there, just looking at it. Yeah, it was just a little flighted cut. Very pretty. So if we're looking at Xander, start him at address. You see that little trigger? He had a little motion first. You see his knees moving. And then he starts winding up. Club gets a little inside the hands, but not much. Face stays pretty much square to spine angle, maybe even slightly more shut than that. So I'm going to do my normal lines here. So we boxed him in. Got a little elbow plane line there. You can see it. Left arm parallel. He's pretty much pointed at the ball, maybe just outside the ball. Then he turns it up to the top, and it's pretty well planed out. I know something he's been working on is getting the club a little less laid off and almost a little across the line.
Yeah. Well, and this is probably what, 6 iron maybe?
Yeah. And then you can see in transition, his hands actually work back higher. So if you look at left arm parallel, he's right there. Now we look at left arm parallel again, he's on the other side of the line. So his arms didn't fall back. They actually went out.
And he's got a similar pattern to Koepka and Hovland, that sort of slight bent left arm there out of transition, slight bow.
Yeah, the whole left arm unit's pretty soft, but he's using, you can see he's curling those knuckles down in transition in the left hand and adding extension in the trail wrist. So I know hearing him talk, his feel is in the left hand. So he feels like he's shutting the face the whole way down with his left wrist.
And he has more of a, what would you say, neutralish?
Yeah, his grip's pretty neutral. We'll look at it in a little bit from face on.
I kind of liked, if you go back to the start, Milo, I kind of like looking at these. He's got those two Descente logos. One on his shorts, like his right glute, and then one on his right shoulder there. So you can see how that one on his shorts, as you go back, if you go to kind of in his backswing, it really pushes into that line. So like, I'm guessing that's a yardage book in his back pocket. That's pushing back. So he's got plenty of space there early in the backswing.
And he loses a little bit of height early because of that, because his pelvis is gaining a little depth. And then you'll see here in transition, he really kind of squeezes down into the ground, loses a little more height.
Pretty money.
Pretty money. Not a lot of roll in the face, pretty darn stable through the strike. Our camera angle's a little behind his feet here, so we're not quite seeing the plane exactly as it is. Because I would guess that at shaft parallel, it's almost dead in his hands right there.
Yeah, that makes it. Again, that's why camera angles are so important. Someone could look at this and be like, oh, my club's outside the hands.
That's pretty money. I just look for the overall motion. He swings it up, gets it really planed out. It shallows out, so it's more shallow now than it was. And works around the corner beautifully. And that's just a little soft cut, judging by all the finish and everything I'm seeing there.
Any thoughts on this angle, Ed or Zach?
Yeah, I was going to talk about his shoulders not being too like retracted. So just allows a little bit more freedom through the upper back.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a change that he's made, but I
Yeah.
think over the last like handful of years, a lot of the coaches were wanting more retracted, stronger shoulder blades, and I don't know that it's helpful with rotation a lot of times. So I like it.
Yeah, we see that very rigid, straight backs, chin up. You know, the brim of the look at the brim of Xander's hat. It's down like almost parallel with the shaft. It's not out on the horizon.
Yeah, so if you draw a line straight through his head,
Mhm.
it's not quite parallel to his shaft, but it's not
Yeah.
far from it. Cool. Look at a different view. So he went from being a little more outside of his hands to more in line with his hands. Now, some players can turn to the top and make that outside the hands look correct, but a lot of times it will get dumped laid off,
Yeah.
which is what happens with him. He dumps it into a laid off. He used to dump it into a laid off position. Now he actually gets it slightly crossed,
Yeah.
which I prefer to be slightly crossed over laid off all day long.
Well, a little bit of that too is just how he's winding up. It's not just how he's pathing the arms or the hands. His windup is just a little different too.
And so now you can see the top of the backswing, how before the club was behind his hands and now it's a little across the line. So that's a pretty significant change. That reminds me of some other person we've been working with. This is
Yeah.
basically the exact same change I've been working with Dana. I also notice his pelvis has wound a lot more now.
Yeah.
So if you look at his hips have turned more than they used to. They used to be pretty, it was like he was resisting quite a lot.
Overall, like the bends in his spine aren't really
Not that different.
that different. It's really more the arm structure, I would say, wrist structure.
Trail arm's less supinated. It's a little more pronated in the cross. I like it. So let's look at his actual swing now from down the line if we have one, or face on, I should say.
The thing I think about too is like when you have that structure that he had before, there's kind of a limit to how far you can wind up, isn't there? Don't you feel like it kind of
Yeah.
like, but if I feel like it's structured and like it is working almost across the line at the very top, like I could keep going what feels like forever.
Yeah. Well, this is cool. We didn't catch the beginning of this golf swing.
I think if you go farther down, like halfway down,
So you can see a little trigger. You see his arms kind of stiffen, his chest rise a little bit in that early phase before the
Yeah.
club moves.
Yeah, Jim Thomas just said, I noticed his hip logo goes back horizontally. I'm guessing that maybe that was from down the line. Hip logo. That was probably the Descente.
Yeah. Now it creates a really nice big wind up. And if you watch the sequence here,
Yeah.
so you can see how many frames do we go with his hand still going up, but his pelvis going down.
You should draw those lines like I did that one time where like you have a table under his hands and then one on his pelvis.
So you did
Could even do one on his left knee.
like a line like this,
Yeah.
and then one like this.
Could put one on his left knee and left shoulder too. I wonder if I haven't done that one before, but that'd be interesting to see. Tandem.
Pelvis is going down,
Yeah.
hands are going up.
It's like those hands.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
Yeah, that's cool.
13. That's a lot of frames before those hands start to move.
Most people's hands are like in the right pocket already by now. That's like he's got a beautiful sequence, like really nice flow.
And so his left arm is bending during this phase because it's really stretching that whole system out. Because that left arm was a lot straighter right here, but now as his pelvis starts to go and his ribs start to go, the slack in those arms just lets them kind of soften a little bit. And you can see there's no pull down in that golf swing. That thing is loaded like a slingshot at P5. Now it just unwinds. And you can see he's still got his hands to the right of his center line, his midline.
Yeah.
And the club still to the right at impact. That's pretty money. And then everything just releases freely through.
So we were out in San Diego, a little story here. We were out in San Diego for golf school last fall, I believe. And Xander, that's where he kind of was based out of. He might have moved now, but he was practicing at the Grand and he's hitting some wedge shots and he was doing split grip like as rehearsals and a lot of like F2 style wedge shots. I think I posted one with a ball recently with a Pro Center
He
maybe.
still does F2 all the time.
Yeah. And his swing is that transition and that move through impact is very, very similar to a lot of the stuff we talk about in that drill that he was working on. Jim asks, why does Milo prefer slightly across rather than laid off?
Easier to create good path. When you're laid off, the club wants to tumble.
Yeah.
Path wants to go left. So then you wind up having to tilt away to match it up.
We'll show the forces after.
Yeah, we can show some of what happens once we're demonstrating here in a minute.
Hey Milo, this is kind of a cool angle. Can you talk a little bit about like left shoulder blade mobility? Because I'm seeing his shoulder blade really like protract a long way, and I think a lot of our students probably could use some mobility stuff for their shoulder blades to achieve this stretch here at the top like he's
Well,
getting.
yeah, right here as he's reaching the top, you can see that left shoulder has moved, the blade has moved a long ways around his rib cage. And that's a big part of loading that stretch. If you don't have enough mobility there, then you're not going to be able to make that kind of turn and get that stretch.
There's one other view I think I got trail view.
We got rear view here. So he definitely has you can really see that trigger right there. He's got all the pressure in his left foot. His right foot's unweighting right now. Now he's going into his right foot, and then the club starts to move. Big wind. If we put a line down his tailbone there, it moves to the forward side of that line. And then he shifts a little bit more, but immediately, watch as he lands, that tailbone starts to circle back to where it started. And now it's basically back on the original wall.
Boom.
And
that's a good angle to see that the hands are staying to the right of his middle.
Yeah, you can really see as he's turning into the ball, his hands are to the right, to the right, to the right.
So we get asked a lot, what does it mean to the right, or what does it mean to have the club trailing, or what is it, hopefully that gives you the perspective we're talking about, is that the hands are to the right of the midline, but that club is well to the right of him. It's trailing him. He's circling the corner.
Yeah,
he's not having that club and his hands cross him so much.
So at this point in time, his chest is pointing out there in front of that microphone. See this microphone right here on the ground? His chest is pointing out left of that, and he still hasn't hit the ball yet.